Hello, in this video we're going to set up LDAPS using a third-party certificate provider, in this case DigiCert. It's a pretty simple lab environment. We have a root domain, 2 subdomains, a jump box, and the AVS solution private cloud. At the end of the video we're going to set up the identity provider to use that LDAP cert from AVS. So to get started, we'll open the DigiCert utility, and then here you can see create a CSR. So if you click on, first make sure it's on the SSL because that's the type of certificate we want, and then click on create CSR. And here we'll put the common name in. So this is going to be the name of the root domain controller, so dc1.azfixit.ca. And then the two SAN names are going to be the dca.prod.azfixit.ca, that's the subdomain, right? And dcb.prod.azfixit.ca. So the organization is Fast Track, the department is AVS, the city is Seattle, the state is Washington, and the country is USA. Make sure you've got it on SSL and then click generate. And that's going to create our CSR. So we're going to copy the CSR. We have to copy everything. So right from the bottom to the top, Control C. I like to put this in a notepad as a temporary fix, but you don't want to keep it, just temporarily. And then we can now go to the DigiCert site, use this CSR to generate our certificate. All right, so let's return to DigiCert now, sign in, and we're going to go to the request a certificate. We're going to request a GeoTrust Cloud DV certificate. And now we're going to take the CSR, so open up the notepad we saved, copy that, Control C, and fire that into here, into the CSR. How much coverage do you want? I'm going to select a default of 3 years, save selection, validity, 397 days, that's fine. Auto reissue, I'm not going to auto reissue for this lab, but you certainly could. And then under advanced certificate options, I don't believe there's a whole lot here for us. All right, last thing we have to do is prove control of your domain. So we can do a verification email, and that's all we really require. If you need to add a technical contact, you can. Optional emails, I agree to the master services agreement, and then click submit request. All right, so now to prove control over my domain, I have to respond to the email. To note, you can also use a DNS CNAME or a text record, right? And add those to your DNS entries to prove that you own the domain you're creating the cert for. So here's my inbox. I'll click on this. And in my case, the hyperlink is not active, so I just have to copy the hyperlink, Control C, paste it into the window, and click on approve request. All right, once that's done, flick back over to the DigiCert screen, do a refresh, and you'll see that the certificate is now complete and we can actually go to download certificates. Here we're going to actually choose more options, and we're going to choose IIS 10 and then download the certificate. All right, once that's complete, I'm going to open this show in folder, and we can see our cert is now in the downloads folder. All right, I'm going to take this cert, copy it, and put it in my desktop. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to use the DigiCert utility to actually import this. And we need to use the DigiCert utility in this case because it will tie the private key to the cert. So let's paste it here. And then when I click on DigiCert, I accept. We'll just minimize this, get out of the way. And you'll see here, it's identified the cert because it's in the same folder as the application. And I'm going to click on Install Certificate. Okay, the certificate was successfully installed, great. So let's take a look back now at my cert console. We'll do a refresh here. And we should see, there we go, dc1.azfixit.ca. All right, so the thing now is to test that we've got connectivity. And to do that, we're going to check 2 things. The first one is that on our DNS service, we actually have a reverse lookup zone that contains the address of the domain controller. So if you don't have that, please configure it. It'll be in your forward lookup zone. Click on the AZFixit, click on DC1, and then update the PTR record. Okay. You will need the reverse lookup zone. The second thing is to check inside our AVS portal that we've actually configured the DNS zone. So AVS knows how to find the DNS servers. So I've already got mine configured here, but it's pretty easy. You just click on add, click in the fully qualified domain name zone, enter in in our case azfixit.ca. Let me cancel and just show you what this looks like. And you can see FQDN, azfixit.ca, the domain. I've got the 3 IP addresses, for one for my primary, DC1, and then this is DCA and DCB. The source IP address I can leave blank. And then click OK. In my case, cancel. Once that's in place on the DNS service, click on Edit. And here all we have to do is change the FQDN zone to azfixit.ca. You'll see it populates with the one that we've got created in the DNS zones. Then click OK. And we're off to the races. So next, I'm actually going to launch my jump box. And then from the jump box, let's just run LDP. Right, we're going to do a connection. Connect to dc1.azfixit.ca, that's my domain controller, and 636 in SSL. And we're going to get a little message here. It says it's connecting, it's an LDAPS connection. We now have to actually do a bind. So that'll be the username and password. Okay. And now if we look at view and the tree view, we will be able to choose the base DN, click OK, and expand the base DN, and we can now see all the attributes, all the LDAP attributes of the directory. And we look up here and we know we've got an LDAPS connection. Now we just have one other activity with the certs, and that is we're going to export. So close this window. We're going to export this certificate as a CER file, and this is going to be used in the authentication process from AVS. So click on export, click on next. Do not export the private key, we don't need that. And we are going to choose base 64 encoded X509 CER. You have to choose this option, none of the other ones will work. Click next, the file name. So we're going to call it LDAPS Identity Cert. Call it whatever you want, but that's just the name for it. Next, and then click on Finish. And the export was successful. Now I put that in the downloads folder. So if I go to my downloads folder, I'm going to see it. There it is, my LDAPS Identity Cert. And what we have to do with this cert is going to be to add it to a container in a storage account in Azure. So to do that, let's open up our browser. We can get out of the DigiCert utility now. And we're going to go and log into our Azure portal. Now there's a good chance you've already got a storage account you can use, but for those that don't, we're just going to create a new one. So I'm going to click on storage accounts. I've got a shortcut here, and I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to put it in my resource group. The storage account name, I'm going to call this the DigiCert demo. With storage accounts, you can only use small characters and numbers. And then West US 2, which is where my AVS environment exists, doesn't really matter. Leave it on standard, change this to locally redundant storage. You don't need to pay for GRS for something you're going to use once. Click on advanced. You can leave all the defaults here. And in fact, we can just leave all the defaults and click on review and then create. This takes about 30 seconds to a minute to complete. Once it's ready, click on go to resource, click on containers. All right, add a container. We'll call this the LDAPS. Okay. And we'll click on private, no anonymous access, just leave the default in other words, and click on create. Once that's done, open up the container and we're going to upload the file. Now I loaded the portal window from the DC1 domain controller. So that means my cert file that I created is going to be right on this machine. If not, you'll have to copy that cert file to whichever machine you're running the portal from. Click on that, click on open, okay, and click on upload. Now we have a couple of choices here. You can close this window and you can actually click on the cert here, click on generate SAS token and click generate SAS token. So you can do it from there, or you can go over to the 3 ellipses here and click on generate SAS token. You can set the expiry. So from a security perspective, this is probably not a bad plan. Limit it to a few hours. Right now we've got it from 1:38 to 9:38, so we've got an 8-hour window to use this. Obviously you could shrink it if you want to. Click on generate SAS token, and then what we want is the blob SAS URL. So we're going to copy that. As a rule of thumb, I usually put this on Notepad just so that if I have to reuse it a couple times, I'll just Control V, paste it in there for the moment. All right, now let's go back to Azure VMware Solution, and we're going to go to our AVS private cloud. We're going to click on the run commands, which are loaded down here, and we're going to select the AVS management, and we're going to say new LDAPS identity source. So the first thing we need is the group name. And if we look at the Active Directory domain controller, we set up one here called AVS Cloud Admin. So let's put that in. The SSL certificate URL, so that I'm going to grab from my notepad. I'm going to paste that in here. Here we have our tree name. So in my case, it's ftadmin and my password, and then the base DN groups. So for the base DN groups, actually the easiest way to do this is to go through ADSI edit, open up the domain, click here, and here's where our groups exist. Remember, here's our group here, allow AVS admins. So if I right click on this and go to properties, I can then scroll down and see the distinguished name, double click on that, Control C, and just paste that in to the base DN groups. I have the same base DN for users, but it could be different, right? So I'm going to put that in as well. The secondary URL, I don't have one. The primary URL is going to be LDAPS, then dc1azfixit.ca. Don't forget to put the :636, right? The domain alias is azfixit. The domain name is azfixit.ca. And the name is just a friendly name that we're going to see in the portal. So now we click on run, and now what we can do to see what's actually going on is change to run execution status. And you'll see here's our latest and greatest, it's running. Open this up and we'll see on the screen here some basic information about the actual run job. We can look at the output, see if there is any errors that have popped up, any warnings, or any information. So the first part's installing modules. This takes anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes to complete. If we go back to details, no errors so far. So in this case, I've actually made an error, and I'm going to show you what that error was. It says long-running operation failed to probe the provider. So this is the bind command, and we can see here under username, I put in fixit.ca instead of azfixit.ca. So let's close this. We will wait for this to complete. Okay, I'm going to open it up again. I'm under the run execution status. Okay, and this time I'm going to do a rerun. I will have to re-enter the SAS URL. So back to Notepad, grab this, paste it in, and under username, I'm going to put in ft@azfixit.ca. My password, and now it's going to retain all the other properties we had. So now we can hit run again. If I now go to the information, actually that's going to be the old one. So let's just close this, go back to here, refresh, and we should see the job running again. Go to information, I'll hit refresh. We can see it's logging in. We can see it's updating, downloading the cert, successfully downloaded, and you can see adding the LDAPS identity source. The group name's been passed in. It looks like everything's good, and the command has finished successfully. So the last thing we have to do is to test this actually worked. So let's go back to our Active Directory users and computers. And if we look at Cloud Admins, the group we created, and we look at the members, we have a member called Mark Test. So let's log in with Mark Test. Go to the logon screen, and we'll type in mtest@azfixit.ca. And you can see here, we have successfully now logged in with an Active Directory identity, mtest@azfixit.ca. Okay, that's about it. There's the next screen has a couple of things I run into or I see customers having trouble with. Otherwise, hope this is useful, and we'll see you in the next video.